Investing can be tricky, but it shouldn't be. Whether you've been thinking of investing here in Canada or if you're unsure of the basics of investments, this video is a must-watch for you to build real wealth here in Canada. And so in this video, I'm going to familiarize you with the different investment accounts here in Canada where you can invest your hard-earned money so that it can compound for years to come. Let's get into it. Let's get into the most important part of this video, which a lot of people get wrong. These are the different investment accounts we have here in Canada, with each one having its own pros and cons. What you have to understand is that these accounts are all baskets to hold your different kind of investment instruments like stocks, ETFs, mutual funds, bonds, crypto, etc., or even cash. That's right. Simply transferring money into any of these accounts won't make it grow. It'll just stay there as cash. There are people who say they've invested in their RRSP or TFSA, etc. But what you'll have to do is purchase stocks or funds or whatever to truly invest your money. And the opposite is true too. If you sell any of these investments within this account, then the money gets liquidated into this account itself. So I would recommend looking at these accounts as digital wallets to fund your investments instead. Also, another term you should be familiar with is something called capital gains. The concept is that if you make a profit on something, then you owe a portion of it to the government as tax. So normally, if you sell a property or a business or any asset for that matter, usually you have to pay some form of capital gains tax. But that's where some of these accounts come in handy, where we can save considerably on these taxes. Okay, now let's actually get into the investment accounts. The first one being the RRSP, or the Registered Retirement Savings Plan. This account is conventionally designed for retirement savings, but there's a whole lot more to it. Contributions to an RRSP are tax deductible, meaning you can reduce your taxable income and potentially receive a tax refund. For instance, let's say you're earning about $80,000 per year and you decide to put in $10,000 into your RRSP. While you normally would have paid taxes for the whole $80,000, you would instead only be taxed on the remaining $70,000, which would reduce the tax you're paying to the government. Additionally, the investments within an RRSP grows tax-free until withdrawal, making it an excellent long-term retirement savings option. So if you sell your funds, stocks, bonds for a profit, or if you're collected dividends, then you don't pay any tax on these as long as this amount sits within your RRSP. Now that you know that you can save on taxes and make your money grow, you might have plans to dump a good chunk of your income into your RRSP. Well, not so fast. There are a couple of things you need to be aware of. There's a maximum annual limit for an RRSP, which in 2024 is either 18% of your previous year's annual income or $31,560, whichever is lower. And any unused amount in the limit or contribution room will get carried over to the next year. So if you can't max out your RRSP a particular year, then that's fine, because you don't lose out on that room. You can choose to utilize it the next year. And this contribution room starts accumulating from the year after you start working here in Canada. So Akash, are you saying that there's no taxation at all for this account? Unfortunately, no. First of all, you don't need to wait till retirement for you to withdraw from your RRSP. You can choose to withdraw money at any time, but whenever you withdraw from your RRSP into your bank account, that amount gets added to your taxable income for the year. Let's go back to the example we spoke about earlier. You've invested $10,000 into the RRSP in 2022, which brought down your taxable income to $70,000, and you saved on paying some taxes. Great stuff. Now let's say that you invested this $10,000 in stocks within your RRSP and it grew to $20,000 by 2025. You then decided to withdraw this $20,000, and let's assume your annual income at this point has increased to $90,000 now. Then your total taxable income for the year will become $110,000, which is basically $90,000 plus the $20,000 that you're withdrawing, which means you'll end up paying more taxes than what you saved in 2022. So the biggest takeaway with your RRSP is that it's really a tax deferred account. And the smartest way to use it would be to withdraw when you're in a lower tax bracket than when you were contributing to it. And since we usually have a lower income after retirement, we fall in a far smaller tax bracket, and so we end up paying far lesser taxes. Hence the name Retirement Savings Plan. Next, we have personally my favorite investment account, the TFSA, or the tax-free savings account. Unlike the RRSP, contributions to a TFSA are not tax deductible. That is, contributing to a TFSA will not mean a reduction in your taxable income. This means that the money you would use to fund the TFSA is after-tax dollars. However, any investment growth and withdrawals from a TFSA are completely tax-free. That is, you do not pay any taxes on any of the capital gains within the TFSA, as well as when you withdraw it from the TFSA to your bank account. Again, let's go back to an example. Let's assume you transfer $8,000 using your after-tax income into your TFSA and you use it to buy stocks. If this then grows to $10,000 or even $100,000 for that matter over the next couple of years, then you can sell your investments and withdraw this entire amount with zero tax. Wow, that sounds awesome, right? You might be thinking, let me just go crazy and transfer all the money I have into my TFSA and let it compound with zero tax. Not so fast, tax boy. There's an annual limit to how much you can contribute per year, and for 2024 that limit is $7,000, and this amount has been increasing every couple of years to account for inflation. Also, any unused contribution from a particular year carries over to the next year. So if you've been in Canada all your life and you turned 18 before 2009, then you would currently have a max contribution limit of $95,000 from each year's contribution limit being carried over. But if you're an immigrant like me, then this room starts from the year you start residing in Canada, provided you're 18 years or older. And so in my case, my contribution room right now is $19,500 from the last 3 years. Also, another thing to keep in mind regarding your TFSA withdrawals is that you can withdraw any amount from your TFSA, but you would lose that contribution amount until the beginning of next year. So in my example, if I had maxed out my TFSA with $12,500 in 2023 and I decided to withdraw $10,000 from it in June 2023, then I don't completely lose the $10,000. But I can't add back the $10,000 up until Jan 2024 when the $10,000 gets added back along with my 2024 contribution limit of $7,000. This means that any amount you withdraw from a TFSA will get added to your contribution amount for the next year. The FHSA, or the First Home Savings Account. Okay, so with the RRSP, you can defer your taxes you pay to the government with a tax deduction, and with the TFSA, you can save on paying any taxes on withdrawal. Now imagine if we had an investment account that offered both. That would be the dream, right? Well, we're kind of in luck because that's exactly what an FHSA is. The money we contribute to it is tax deductible just like the RRSP, and any withdrawals made from it is completely tax-free like the TFSA. But of course there are conditions that come with this account too. So any resident of Canada who's 18 years or older can open an FHSA, but the tax-free withdrawals can only be used for the purchase of their first home. That is, you and or your spouse or common law partner have not owned a home in which you lived as your primary residence at any time in the last 5 years or so. This is a new account introduced in 2023 with an annual contribution limit of $8,000 and with a total contribution limit of $40,000, which can be maxed out in 5 years. That is $8,000 per year. But unlike the RRSP and TFSA, which have their contribution limits automatically added ever since you turn 18 or start working, the FHSA limit only applies to anyone who opens up an FHSA account. So if you don't open up an FHSA account in 2024, then you lose out on the $8,000 contribution for that year. So my recommendation is opening up an account right away and choosing to fund it whenever you want, so that at least you don't lose out on the contribution amount for that year. By the way, you can keep the amount in your FHSA provided you buy a house within the next 15 years. Or alternatively, you have the choice to transfer your FHSA amount into your RRSP, where you'll be taxed on withdrawal from the RRSP as usual. So this way, the FHSA is probably the most lucrative out of the lot, but it's catered towards you buying your first home. But up until then, you can smartly use this to both save taxes on both the income side as well as on the capital gain side. With these three accounts, the TFSA, RRSP and FHSA, you can open up as many of these accounts as you want with each institution or platform. But your overall contribution limit is the cumulative total of all these accounts. For example, with the FHSA, your total contribution limit is $40,000 after 5 years. So even if you open an FHSA with TD, Wealthsimple, EQ as well as CIBC, your limit will still be $40,000. That is, the total of all these accounts cannot cross the $40,000 limit. So it's super imperative for you to keep track of your limits, otherwise you would be charged a penalty tax if you exceed these limits. You can always check your MyCRA account to see what your total contribution limits are for each of these accounts. There are 2 more registered investment accounts that are relatively less popular, but I'll briefly talk about them so that you're aware. But these are not applicable to me, at least not at this point, but you're free to do some digging around these if they pique your interest. The RESP, or the Registered Education Savings Plan. For those saving for their children's or grandchildren's education, the RESP is a good account to consider. With an RESP, you can contribute up to a lifetime maximum amount per child and receive government grants about 20 to 40% depending on your financial situation, which is basically free money. The investments within an RESP grow tax deferred, and when a child enrolls in post-secondary education, they can withdraw the funds, which are then taxed in their hands, typically resulting in lower taxes. The RDSP, the Registered Disability Savings Plan. This account is specifically designed for individuals with disabilities. Contributions to an RDSP are not tax deductible, but any investment growth is tax deferred. The RDSP also offers government grants and bonds, which can significantly boost savings. Withdrawals from the RDSP are generally considered taxable income for the beneficiary. Finally, moving on to the non-registered account. This one's a regular investment account that doesn't come with any specific tax advantages or restrictions. You can contribute as much as you want and there are no contribution limits or withdrawal penalties. You would be using after-tax dollars to fund this account and you'd pay taxes on any capital gains made within this account. Since the investments within a non-registered account are subject to taxes, it's a good idea to first max out all your other accounts before moving on to the non-registered one. Having said all this, the most important thing would be to diversify your investments with these accounts across various asset classes like stocks, mutual funds, ETFs, bonds, and alternative assets based on your risk tolerance and investment objectives. I have a whole lot more content coming your way around these, so if you're interested, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified when they drop. And if you learned anything in this video, then I'd love it if you'd hit the like button. It would help spread this video to other Canadian residents who might find this beneficial. I would recommend checking out 2 of my previous videos where I talk about the different accounts to open and the best order to invest your money. These will give you a fair idea of the best options for your bank accounts, including high interest savings accounts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.